The evolution of empathetic coaching is on the rise, causing coaches from all spectrums of sports to pause and ponder the benefits between maximizing the full athletic capabilities of their athletes versus connecting with them on a more human level. So the question is, how do you strike the right balance and find the right accord? Ken King is the head women's basketball coach at Red Deer College in Alberta. He joined me on Wednesday to answer that most pivotal question. So first of all, Ken, we want to take the time to welcome you to the Two Man Advantage podcast, and we're excited to have you on the show to talk about this most important topic this morning, buddy.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
So, Ken, when we look at empathetic coaching, I know it's something that you sort of evolved into throughout your coaching career. So could you tell me why it's important for you to sort of adopt a more empathetic coaching style?
Well, I think the common thing that we hear a lot in the coaching and teaching and general education world right now is that kids these days are getting lazy and they're always wanting different accommodations and they're always wanting this and that to make things go easier for them. And as opposed to viewing that as just, for lack of a better term, that students and athletes are getting softer or weaker, which is not the case. I think that we need to pay more attention to what they're actually thinking and feeling and going through and how they're being taught and grown before they get to the point where we're coaching and teaching them, so we can coach and teach them as effectively as possible without putting any labels on it or any assumptions about where they've been at or how they've been developed up to that point.
And in your opinion, how has relating to today's athlete sort of changed over the years?
I think that there's no secret that there's less coping mechanisms that we're seeing, especially as we get to the college level, in terms of the higher stress environment, that exam, like we're in midterms right now, and as we see midterms crop up, we start to see a lot more problems for both athletes and non-athletes on and off the court, and because of that, they're not, those problems aren't really coming up organically. They're problems that are being hidden and not talked about. And mental health is definitely something that's at the forefront of concern for a lot of people in education right now. But if we kind of look even beyond that, just that severity, I think that we also need to understand that there's not necessarily athletes that are built to just cope with that stress at this time of year or at any interval in the year. We definitely can't assume that.
Relating to differing personalities is a large part of what contributes to being a successful coach. And with the mental health discussion certainly ongoing, how do you think coaches have shifted their thinking when it comes to relating to and maximizing the potential of their athletes?
I think that now we're just seeing that you have to instill a lot more of those values in your culture. You have to instill and teach growth mindset based learning, and you have to talk to them about their emotions and talk to them about how it's okay to feel what they're feeling, and they need to be comfortable with that. I think that one of the best ways that I've ever kind of seen it described is in a book called The Worry-Free Mind, which is written by Bill Wade and Carol Kershaw. And in that book, they talk a lot about the physiology of the brain and the different brain waves, and how they work, and that a lot of the brainwave activity that we're seeing nowadays in athletes is completely beta wave activity or high problem solving brainwave activity all the time. They never really come down from that. They never really meditate down or relax their way down into an alpha wave state or something's lower. And as a coach, we need to teach them that the things that they're feeling and the things that they're dealing with, it's not a choice, and it doesn't make them weird, and it doesn't make them out of place. It's actually a physiological brainwave activity thing that is also rooted in emotion, but it's not. It's a scientifically based feeling. It's not something that makes them abnormal. It actually makes them quite normal.
And in your opinion, what qualities do you think, if someone asked you to describe the perfect empathetic coach, what qualities do you think they would possess?
Well, first of all, I would tell them that if anybody thinks that you can be a perfect coach at anything, then you're probably pretty far off right off the bat. I don't think that there is a perfect way to coach in any aspect, whether it's with empathy or even wins and losses or something like that. I don't think that there's anybody who's perfect. I'm definitely not the person to necessarily judge that perfection, but I think the kind of core value at coaching now has to really just be the concept of really getting to know and understand and get deeper understanding of your athletes and the people you're working with, and never just thinking that they should be able to handle this or my athletes 5 years ago were capable of doing this, so should this one, because that backstory, that putting yourself in their shoes, that actual empathetic moment that you're in, you have a choice on whether or not you deal with them in a way that is empathetic, or you deal with them in a way that is actually quite rash and cold.
Now, can you tell me, I know with the pressure of winning, coaches are obviously judged in the win and loss column. So can you tell me about the importance of sort of striking a balance from wanting to win and connecting with your athletes to make sure that you know that they're connected with you so that you can get their peak physical performance?
Yeah, I think that there's two kind of prongs to that issue, and one is that you have to decide what winning actually is for you, and we all get judged on wins and losses largely, but we also get judged on the type of person that we produce as coaches, and who's leaving our program and who's a part of our program, and it definitely is a little bit of short-term pain for long-term gain. Experienced that myself in my current position, where you're trying to invest more in your people, and that doesn't automatically translate into wins and losses. But as you invest in your people, you get a different kind of win, where you're investing in who they are as an individual and the things that they care about, the things that are important to them, and in the long term, that I believe will also translate into success in terms of the wins and losses.
And can you also tell me, shifting gears for just a second, can you also give me your perspective on this sort of participation trophy culture that seems to be existing now, where everyone just gets recognition for participating, so to speak, rather than winning on a more physical or athletic level. So could you give me your opinion on the whole participation trophy culture?
Yeah, I think that one of the larger things with participation culture and is just what is the root learning in why they're actually doing that activity? Are they participating in that activity just to feel good, or are we constantly trying to teach and have athletes learn? Because if we're trying to have athletes learn, they're going to learn from success and failure. And one of the large things that I try to pass on as much as possible is that the failure aspect is a very, very good aspect, especially for youth. And when we get into that participation based culture, where we're rewarding just showing up and that kind of thing, it's really just another way to shield from failure. And shielding from failure tends to make everything quite a bit harder to be empathetic moving forward. It makes people less willing to be vulnerable. It makes people less willing to share their emotions, which means that as that athlete transitions to future coaches, future teachers, future learning opportunities, they're going to be terrified to fail. They're going to be terrified to express how they feel, and they're going to have a real challenge ever working empathetically with a coach or teammates because they've been in this kind of bit of bubble wrapped sport world.
When your players leave your program, what lesson or message do you hope they apply to both their athletic and personal lives?
I think that first and foremost, one of the things that we try and instill in the women in our program right now is that they are strong, and that they have so much more to offer than they ever think they possibly can, and never to assume that whatever they are right now is what they're going to be, and that's really, like, we're talking a lot of the growth mindset stuff and that kind of thing all the time, but really, as long as they are willing to go towards failure and make mistakes and learn that way, and not be afraid to assume that they can be bigger and greater and more successful, if you want to put it that way, than whatever they are now in basketball or otherwise. There's always more, and to be hungry for that more, that's a really big part of it. And to make sure that that in that success, they're never doing it alone. They're always connecting and thinking and empathizing with others, teammates, coworkers, peers, leaders, etc.
What's the one message that you hope any athlete, coach, or any of our viewers take away from today's discussion?
I think that it's just like any organization or successful person or group. The biggest mistake that we can make in coaching now is to assume that because that's the way that it worked in the past, or because that's the way that it always has been, that is the way that it has to be moving forward. And we can't deal with today's and tomorrow's athletes without at least some level of empathy. Because if we're not really empathetically looking at the people that we're dealing with, and not just the outcomes that we want or the outcomes that we get, then we're never actually going to achieve the outcomes that we deserve.
Hey, Ken, we want to take the time to thank you for participating in this ever so interesting discussion, and we want to thank you for your time this morning on the Two Man Advantage podcast, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.